Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Luke from LCPT Fitness if you haven't been to this channel before. And today we're going to be talking about internal versus external motivations and understanding how and why that particular category of where you might be in is affecting you and your health and fitness goals today. So I wanted to start off with a bit of a story because I had an interesting conversation with a client of mine probably about 2 days ago, just around routine and understanding why someone sticks to a certain routine. And when I shared my routine with that client, they were borderline shocked with how much exercise I might do in a week. So for me, I do, just to put it simply, 5 weight sessions a week because I have certain strength goals that I'm trying to adhere to because I have a powerlifting competition that's coming up in maybe about 6 to 8 months. And when I shared that with them, they were shocked. They were so held back and almost far-fetched to the point where they went, that's so much exercise. How do you have so much time to do that? How can you be bothered to do that much exercise? And it really got me thinking on understanding, well, why does that sound so far-fetched to someone else? Whereas to me, doing that doesn't sound like it's too much of a big deal at all. And when I think of my experiences, when I go to the gym, I come across the same people. I can always count on seeing the same people there. I don't necessarily mean best of friends or people that I'm close with, but just everyday gym goers, but they're the familiar faces that I see every time that I go and train. The communication that we might have together is something as simple as, hey mate, how are you going? How's your session going today? But I can always count on that person being there. And it got me thinking to the point where routine and solidifying a routine is really hard. It's hard to be able to sit back and actually create a routine that's specific for you. But the biggest thing is making sure that you're doing it for the right reasons and you know what it is for in a bigger picture. So for someone like the client who I was talking to, let's call her Samantha, Samantha found it really far-fetched that the amount of exercise that I was doing was just a lot, but she was looking at it simplistically from what I was doing during the week, but not really understanding the long-term picture or why I was motivated to do that much exercise. In a similar circumstance, when I go to the gym and I exercise and I come across those everyday gym goers, like I was saying, those people in that environment have a very similar circumstance because their routine proves it. They're in a position where they're exercising regularly. It doesn't necessarily mean they're doing a competition like myself or that's their motivator of what they're trying to work towards, but it's definitely something where they have an internal driving factor to be able to make sure that they go to the gym. So if you're in a position where you're looking to build some consistent routines and be able to, articulate that into defining the best version of yourself to be able to produce long-lasting change in routines that you're genuinely motivated by, then stick around and grab a pen and paper because this video is definitely for you. So talk to someone who works with drug rehab patients and they'll give you a few words of wisdom that basically success is determined by your motivators. And what that means is we need to understand what truly motivates us to be able to, 1, solidify a routine, but 2, be able to stick to that routine consistently enough because we understand the outcome at the end of the tunnel. So if we think of someone who might be suffering with drug addiction, which in my life and in my family, I have come across people that have been struggling with, those kind of things in the past and have actually come out on the other side. Unfortunately, there have been people that haven't. But when we look at that and we go into that a little bit further, everyone in that realm from the experiences that I've been through is they try and come clean at some stage. They understand how the parameters of what they're doing are affecting their life and what that could potentially mean for them in the future. But the difference between the people that actually succeed at doing that and the people that regress and stay exactly where they are is purely coming down to the reason as to why they're actually making that decision to change. So for someone that I was quite close to in my family, they were addicted to certain substances and they were told that their house was going to get repossessed by the bank because they weren't making their payments. And obviously it was because of the drug addiction that person was going through, but not even that sparked motivation for him to be able to make a change and to be able to actually be in a position where he said to himself, okay, what my habits are actually causing negative connotations in my life. For someone like myself who has never taken drugs before at all, you look at that and go, that's just a no-brainer, like you're about to lose your house. But unfortunately for that person, the motivators were external. Someone told him that he had to change because of a certain circumstance that was external to his own purpose and his own reason. But for another person, it was something as simple as they had a near-death experience and they experienced a certain level of pain that they never experienced before. And when they got to the other side of that, that's the change that they sparked because of something that was so compelling. And internally, they realized how detrimental that could be to them again because they almost lost their life. So I know that sounds like a very full-on scenario and it might sound a little bit weird why I'm starting with that when we're talking about internal and external motivation and bringing that to health and fitness. But we can look at it in so many different avenues and so many different realms. You know, you could be at work and your boss says to you, you know, hey, you need to make sure that you get this particular paperwork done on time. And if you don't, then this is what's going to happen as a byproduct. The position that you're now left in is unfortunately an external motivator that you might not be motivated to do, even though there might be urgency behind it. And the reason for that is because the long-term focus of what that could potentially mean for you has somehow got lost in translation, and you're not actually sure as to why you're doing those tasks in the way that you should. So if I'm going to bring it to a health and fitness perspective, this happens all the time. This is something I come across quite consistently almost every day when I come into contact with people that are coming in all guns blazing, ready to go to make changes in their life because something external motivated them. I had a conversation with the client the other day who was so ready to make changes. She's like, no, I want to change my life. I want to do it. I was like, well, what caused this? You know, what caused this level of motivation for you to be able to go, okay, this is what I want to do. And she saw a bus driving past that had a 9-week challenge banner up on it and said, I want to look like that person that's on the 9-week challenge banner because I can do that in 9 weeks. Now, the person that was on that 9-week challenge banner was like a high-end Instagram fitness model that was competing in a bodybuilding competition that was driving past on there. And the client that I was talking to that wanted to be able to do that hadn't touched a weight or been in a gym for the last 20 years. You know, so you can see how the misconception in that is we want things that are long term. We want things that are going to give us the best possible outcome for what we think that is. By no means am I saying doing a bodybuilding competition is the best outcome, purely just from the circumstance of what that represents from a time perspective. But someone could see that and go, well, that's where I want to be, and not actually realize, one, how long that can take, and two, how much effort it takes and how hard that is to be able to get to that point, and the barriers that they're going to have to break through to be able to get there. So that's from an external motivation perspective. When we look on the other side, when we go into the internal motivators, instead of that particular client being in a position where she was motivated by a banner on a bus, she could have sat back and gone, okay, what exactly am I not happy about with myself? No, she was real with herself. She could go all the way down to, what about my character do I not like? You know, what about my body do I not like? What hardships is this causing me in my life that I'm not enjoying at the moment? And instead of looking for a journey of discovery in front of her to be able to run away from her pain, she could have done a complete 180 and looked back and gone, okay, what is it that I'm not happy with that I never want to experience again? And that's the internal motivation that we're looking for. It becomes a lot more viable and there's a lot more sustenance behind it because it's now for her. It's not for anyone else. You know what I mean? So when I was going back to the beginning of saying success is determined on your motivation, we could probably agree that if she had have gone down that road of trying to run towards that banner on the bus and achieve that, the success likelihood of that happening would have been very low. But now that she's done a complete 180 and looked back and gone, okay, well, what is it that I need to change in my life that I'm not happy with? The success motivators are a lot higher because the consistency of routine that is going to come from that and the routine that is required to be able to achieve those things that she knows that she is not happy about. Because remember, her circumstances and what she's reflecting on are only circumstantial to her life for no one else's. Whereas the banner could be circumstantial to anybody because it's in the eyes of the beholder. So if she's sitting in a position where she looks back behind herself and she's like, I don't like the role model that I am for my kids and I feel like I'm teaching them bad habits, not everyone is going to be able to relate to that. That's for her and her alone. But when someone sees an amazing physique on a bus and says, I want to look like that, everyone can relate to that in some way because they go, that looks awesome, I want to do that. So now that she's dialed that back, she can create a sustainable routine and she knows the purpose behind it. And now that she knows the purpose, that guarantees consistency to be able to achieve an amazing outcome, which is being able to move away from that pain, not run towards pleasure. So strategies to inspire your own motivation. So focus on change you feel instead of change you see. So what I mean by that is health and fitness is a prime example. People's goals are a prime example of this particular point. So everyone wants to look great, but the only reason to look great is so that others will like what they see. And unfortunately, that's the main motivator as to why most people go on any kind of health and fitness journey, is because the external motivator is something that someone has said to them that has sparked a motivation to be able to make a change because they didn't like what they heard. Now, unfortunately, if we're in a position position where we're constantly subjected to people's opinions and we buy into those and we change ourselves as people based off what people say to us, we're never going to be happy, because the world that we live in, everyone's going to have an opinion and everyone's going to be critical of the choices that you make. So we need to make sure we delve back into the perspective of focusing on the things that we can control that don't require someone's opinion to be able to gratify our progression. So things like working on your strength, you know, how much stronger are you getting in the gym? Things like working on your fitness, how far are you able to run? Things like working on your health, is your cholesterol high? Do you have a healthy blood pressure range? By focusing on the things that you can control, it removes the opportunity for someone to give you their opinion in a much more minimalistic manner, and you can reflect back and actually see your own progress and give yourself your own gratification to understand that you're progressing, and not rely on the opinions of other people with what they see and what they would like you to look like. But the things to remember is when you're focusing on the things that you can control, the only logical outcome is that your appearance is going to change, but it's going to be so much more fulfilling because it's built on the things that you have made a decision to do, not what other people have made you feel that you should do. So the next strategy is only do what you enjoy. So when we think of that in a simplistic manner, if you do something you hate over and over again, the likelihood of you being successful in that particular task or activity is going to be extremely unlikely. We need to be in a position where the things that we're allocating our time to, we genuinely enjoy doing it. And this isn't a point that we need to go into too heavily. It's almost a no-brainer. If you're doing things in your life that you genuinely don't like or that you even hate, to expect that you're going to have some kind of positive outcome to be able to achieve something in that realm is really unlikely. You need to be real with yourself to be able to identify that, because you've got to remember, with hate comes things like resentment, you know, lack of connection, withdrawal. You know, if all these things are starting to become prevalent in your activities, and if we think of it from a health and fitness perspective, if you're doing types of exercise that you don't genuinely enjoy, or even something as simple as you have a goal that you're working towards because someone else has set it for you from a verbalization of what they think you should do, you're always going to be in a position and have a level of resentment for that situation. It's not coming from an internal motivator. Again, it's coming from external. So you need to make sure that the things that you delve into are things that you genuinely enjoy. So when we think of health and fitness, make sure the exercise that you actually specify for yourself is something that you like doing. You know, if you like being able to become fitter and, you know, run long distances, then make that your prime motivator to know that that's how you're progressing. Like me, if you're someone who likes to be able to work hard in the gym and likes to lift heavy weights and that's your level of motivation, then go with that, because at the end of the day, that's going to be for you and no one else. So make sure you do the things that you enjoy and make sure that you base your routines around that. So when you start a routine, don't give up for at least 30 days. So despite everything that I've spoken about when it comes to building a consistent routine and basing it on factors and foundations of things that internally motivate you, that doesn't remove the possibility of it being hard. It doesn't remove the possibility of the journey being difficult and starting to build new habits and new routines again. You need to be in a position where you need to understand that the first 30 days or the first month of something that you try and work towards is probably going to be the most difficult, because you're going to start to experience challenges and things that start to clash together with habits that you've already built and new ones that you're trying to build. So over time, as you stay consistent with those new habits and those start to trump the bad habits that you had before, then those new routines and those new consistencies will become subconscious. But in the first 30 days, it's probably going to be a conscious effort. So you need to remember that and be in a position where you understand that it's probably going to be a hard factor when you're going through those first 30 days. But on the other side of it is going to be a subconscious routine that is something that's just going to be normal in your life that you can consistently work towards and keep as a routine. So focus on consistency and not results. So you have more control over how often you do something than the results that you actually get from it. So when we think of consistency, we need to understand that the routine in which we have solidified is the only vehicle that is going to allow you to see the results that you want in the future. But unfortunately, for what most people do, they focus on the result. So if we delve back to that analogy that I used with the experience I had with a client that was motivated by the banner on the bus, that's something where they were focusing on the end point with no sustenance of routine or purpose to be able to achieve that. But when you're in a position where you focus on consistency, so you've delved into understanding exactly what internally motivates you and you've built a routine from that, then you can be in a position where you understand that the result is only going to come as a byproduct of the consistency and the level of effort that you put into the routine that has been built off the goal that is now being internally motivated by you. So we need to make sure that we focus on the consistency of the routine, because without consistency, the routine is going to start to fall off, and that's where old habits can start to come back in. And without consistency, as a simple scenario, the outcome of what you're trying to achieve realistically can't happen. You've got to think of that routine as almost like the car driving to the destination. And if you're not consistent with that routine, that car's run out of petrol and you've come to a stalemate. You need to make sure that you understand exactly where you're going and you focus on consistency and not results. So the final point that I wanted to point out with all of these different strategies that you can use to be able to be in a position where you're internally motivated and you're creating routine from that is not to do all of it at once. So you don't want to overwhelm the scenario, and you don't want to try and do everything in your power to be able to do every strategy that I've just given you, or even strategies that you might have yourself. You want to think of it like a stack of pancakes. You know, the bigger the stack of pancakes, the more appealing it looks, and the greater the experience it's going to be, but it always has to start with one layer. So start with one thing. Start with one thing that you know that you can control, that you can make conscious efforts to be able to change, and continue to work on that layer until it becomes a subconscious routine. Once that's done, that's left a new level of consciousness that you can bring something into, which is the second stack of the pancake. Initially, that second stack is going to be a conscious effort, but once you do it for long enough, like the 30-day strategy that I was talking about before, it's going to become subconscious again. And over time, you're going to have this huge stack of pancakes, or to bring it back to real life, a huge stack of consistent routine points that you're doing subconsciously. That's just going to allow you to always be in the position that you want to be in when it comes to your health and fitness goals. So if we use the pancake analogy for purely just health and fitness reasons, the first layer could be something as simple as taking full strength Coke out of your diet and changing it to no sugar Coke. It could be something as simple as getting up and making sure you go for a 30-minute walk 2 times a week. It could be, make sure you get to the gym once a week, and you can start to build it from there into more consistent routines. But unfortunately, people look at the huge stack of pancakes where they go tracking their food every day, hitting their macros, training weights 5 times a week, running consistently every day, and all these different things that someone else has done, and not realize that that was a process to be able to build that. So you need to bring it back to you and look at where you're starting from and start to build it from that point. So one quote that I wanted to leave you guys with, just to wrap up the video, that I think ties into everything that we spoke about today, that you can obviously hold on to and reflect on, is when you let your internal motivations guide you, the results you get won't just be better, they'll be more fulfilling, and they'll also be forever. So it's something for you guys to hold on to, just to be in a position where you understand that your motivators and the way that you motivate yourself is the start to long-lasting change. Then you can start to develop into the things like I was talking about, the different strategies where you start to pancake things. You're not reactive to the comments of what people say to you, because you know internally what it is that you're working towards, and obviously all the other things that we went through today. So I hope you got something out of the video. I'd love to hear what you guys think by just dropping a comment and letting me know what you think could have been better or what could have been improved. I hope you subscribe and like the video, and I look forward to seeing you all next week on Tuesday, and we can move into the next topics of what we're going to go into. Thanks, guys.